In this presentation, we're going to look at our idea of divergence, our first presentation in this topic, by looking at the idea of categories. All right, to get started, I want to try a little something with you. I want to show you an image, and I want you to tell me what you think, which of these shapes is different from all the others. Okay, so take a few minutes, pause the video, give it some thought, and when you're ready, come back. Okay, so you should have had a bit of time. Um, think about which shape you decided was different from all the others, and then think about the reasons you thought it was different from all the others. And then think about this. Could your argument be applied to really any one of the shapes? And the answer, I think you'll agree, is yes. That the true answer to this question is all of them. Any one of these you could make a case for. This one's the only one with all round edges. This one is the only shape with something cut out of it. This one is the only shape with no round edges. So we can make an argument for all of these. What you probably experienced in this was the idea of there had to be one correct answer. So you were looking for the one answer. Which one was true, which is correct? And this is something that's been ingrained in us ever since we started our educational journey. It's always about finding the right answer, the correct answer. Because if you don't have the right answer, you don't have the correct answer, you get a red pen mark on your paper and you don't get as good a score. So as Ken Robinson is fond of saying in his video on TED Talk about creativity, we're taught to find the one correct answer, and it's the one that's always at the end of the book. Now, this is good for a certain style of thinking, known as convergent thinking, but it's not very good for another style of thinking known as divergent thinking, which is going to be the topic of this week's readings and presentations. So divergent thinking is a way of looking at things in terms of multiple solutions, multiple answers. And like I alluded to, this is not something we have much experience with in our educational system. Tests, exams, SATs, all of these things are geared largely towards correct answers. And very few of us have experience in education with trying to find multiple ways of thinking about things, doing things, answering things. And so we're not very well equipped, generally speaking, with this method of thinking. And so divergence is a crucial aspect of creativity, which we're going to come up against again and again. So essentially, there are two basic modes. There's many ways to chop up thinking. We're just going to try this for now. Convergent and divergent. Convergent thinking is what most of us are used to. It's a logical sort of narrowing down of possibilities to find the correct one. So you're starting maybe with a range of possibilities, multiple answers, and you're trying to find the correct one. And there are some types of problems which fit really well into this mode of thinking, things like this. Multiple choice questions, right or wrong answers, true or false, practical things, why won't my car start? You might start with, well, is my key in? Is there gas? Is my battery connected? And so you might eliminate things one by one until you find actually what's wrong with your car and why it won't start. So this is a way of converging down on the answer. Divergent thinking, on the other hand, is starting with a problem and trying to imagine multiple solutions, many, many ways and perspectives of addressing the problem. And this is a much harder type of thinking to do because often when we find an answer, something that works, we shut down because that's what we've been trained to do. If we find what works, we're done, we're finished. But that might not be the optimal answer. Our best idea might be idea number 10, or idea number 12, or idea number 60, or 50. And if we will see in this course, if you look at a lot of inventors and artists and scientists, that's exactly how they work. They're extremely prolific. They're making things constantly to get to those ideas and thoughts and breakthroughs and innovations that they really need. And so divergent thinking is not just for creativity, it's for all sorts of things in our life. So if you think about these kinds of questions, they don't have one answer, they have multiple answers. And so the ability to generate a multitude of answers is very, very beneficial in creativity. So What happens with convergent thinking is we get less answers and they tend to be very similar, whereas with divergent thinking, we do two things. We get multiple answers, um, and we often get very different kinds of answers. And so I asked you before looking at this PowerPoint to do the multiple use test, to contribute to the multiple use assignment um, on our website. So another term for that is an alternative use task. And that's one way of measuring divergent thinking. So divergent thinking is considered by many researchers to be a cornerstone of creative thinking. Other people have different opinions, but we don't need to get involved in that right now. And so the ability to measure divergent thinking is seen by many as a good way of assessing one's creativity. And there are many types of divergent thinking tests. The one I asked you to do, the multiple use, also known as the alternative use, was to look at how many uses you could think of for an object. And in our case, it was a brick. So I asked you to think about the brick and think about, what can you do with it? And you filled out a sheet online. And this is, some of the types of things people could come up with. A doorstop, a bookend, a bug killer, a paperweight. And if you keep going, we might get slightly more interesting answers. An exercise weight, a water displacer for a cistern and a toilet, a stepping stone. So a couple of things begin to happen here. One, your early answers, the first things you think of, are usually pretty conventional and pretty stereotypical. All right, so I've done this test a million times with people, well, maybe not a million, but a lot, and so have many other researchers. And things like doorstop, bookend, bug killer, paperweight, these come up almost all the time. A little bit less frequently might be, an exercise weight or a stepping stone. And so this is a microcosm of one of the things that happens in these tests. It's called fluency. The more you think of, the more interesting the ideas become. Your initial ideas are usually pretty standard, pretty stereotypical, pretty habitual. So if I asked you to come up with 1,000 uses for a brick, I guarantee you that the last 500 will be much more imaginative than the first 500. So this is an important piece of information for us. Just the sheer act of coming up with stuff forces us into the realm of imagination and creativity. And so again, here are a list of pretty standard things. And as we keep going and write things down, we begin to notice things. So we go back to the list in the class, but I'm not using that list right now. But we'll use what we have here as an example. If we take all of these ideas, let's say these were the ideas you came up with, notice something about these things. They all have to do with the idea of using an entire brick, one whole brick. The minute you identify that, you've identified a category. Right? If you notice, wow, all of my solutions involved using a brick as a whole single entity. Well, the minute you acknowledge and recognize that, what happens? You have a new idea, right? The new idea is, well, what happens if I break the brick? What happens if I tear it down, break it into pieces, and use those pieces? Now what's just happened is you've discovered an entire new category of using the brick. And what that does is it opens up whole new possibilities. So you recognize this as a category, you develop a new category, and look what you get. A whole new slew of ideas which allow you to think about the brick. What happens if you break it down? You can make pigment. You can make a painting. Maybe that pigment, if it was small enough, could be a facial scrub or toothpaste. Or you can make small bricks, turn it into a piece of sculpture, make it into a game, turn it into gravel. I'm sure there's other things you can think of. So now you're getting onto this idea of understanding solutions in terms of categories. So we've got two categories. What's the next thought that might occur to you? Is there a third category? If you want, take a moment, pause this video and think about it. See if you can come up with a third category. Okay, so you're back. I'm assuming you either did or you didn't. So let's move on. Here is a third category, inspiration. What happens if we use the brick as inspiration? We write a poem about it. We paint a picture of it. We write a story. Create a new religion. So in this case, we're not using the whole brick to do something with. We're not transforming the brick. We're being inspired by the brick in some level. We're using the brick to make something else. And that could be anything. So now, we have three categories, and the next thought that might occur to you is a fourth category. Now, it gets harder and harder as we go. So I'll let you think of a fourth category and contribute that to the course forums in a discussion if you can think of a fourth category. FYI, it's really hard. Okay, so we can see our thinking of our solutions and our ideas in terms of categories does several things. But most importantly, it opens us up to new possibilities, because if we identify something as a category, then we can see outside of that. We can see around it. So categorization is something we do all the time unconsciously. It's an important part of what we do. It gives structure and meaning to our thoughts. But it can also limit and constrain our thoughts. So being able to acknowledge categories and recognize them is a very useful skill. And we'll look at some of those and some of the exercises that are coming up next.